Of all the threats to your saltwater tank, whether it be temperature drop, temperature rise, power outage, you name it, the biggest one is actually outside your tank, with the government wanting to restrict the trade of fishing corals. I'm here with Bob from the Pet Advocacy Network. We're talking about the Competes Act. A lot of people are saying, yeah, it's going to go away. We don't have anything to worry about. Tell me why that's wrong.
Boy, it'd be great if that were right. The problem with the Competes Act is this is not the first time we've seen this language. It was originally offered in a bill, Senate Bill 626 by Senator Marco Rubio. We also saw very similar language inserted into the budget reconciliation last year by Representative Nancy Pelosi's staff. So this is language that could really have a huge detrimental impact on the hobby and the trade. And we are seeing that there are some very powerful people that would like to see this language. And so as we engage on this, we have to keep spreading the word that even if we beat it, this isn't the last time we're going to see it.
Because we're seeing it from the Republican side, the Democratic side. Both sides are trying to get this thing in there.
That's right. For different reasons, we have people on both sides of the aisle that think that this is a good idea. And it's one of those things that it just is not a Republican versus Democrat, right versus left, conservative versus liberal issue. This is one where different people want it for different reasons, but that doesn't mean they both don't want it.
A lot of hobbyists say, well, look, we're going to go captive bred. This isn't a big deal. Why is that not true?
Well, particularly on the marine side, there are a lot of species that are not effectively captive bred yet. And if something like this happens, probably never will be, because it'll be too difficult to try and get access to breeding stock in order to try and do that. Even with the captive bred, however, you're dealing with a situation where this bill would give authority over interstate commerce to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. That's something they've never had. So now they could decide that something is potentially invasive somewhere in the country. Lionfish are a great example. Florida probably should ban lionfish. That's fine. They are invasive there. I'm from Wisconsin. Lionfish are not a big threat in Wisconsin. So because it's potentially invasive somewhere, it could be banned everywhere. And at that point, it doesn't matter whether it's captive bred or wild caught. It's just trading in an invasive species, and you wouldn't be able to cross state lines. So you would have access to those fish that are aquacultured in your state for your tanks.
Only in my state.
Can you imagine?
I mean, I'm like, what's aquaculture in my state? Probably not much, and it may not even come in, actually be bred in my state.
It has huge ripple effects. In the short term, banning the import of those fish while they work out what belongs on a whitelist and what doesn't, because that's also sounds very basic but is a very complicated issue to develop. You could have very few different species of fish actually available to the hobby. If you go through 3 or 4 years of only having a few species available to the hobby, what happens to this hobby? I mean, the reason we collect fish, the reason we have tanks, is our fish tank is not like anybody else's.
Right.
There is a huge unique factor to keeping aquarium fish, particularly keeping marine fish. And the idea that that would go away and there would be a very limited access to different species would just destroy our hobby.
So does this apply to coral as well?
Absolutely. It actually would probably even impact the plants you put in your tank, but for the freshwater keepers.
Okay.
But it would definitely affect coral, and as folks that know more about coral than I do will tell you, not a ban with any type of coral would be hugely problematic, because it can be so difficult to distinguish different species of coral.
Right.
And if you're really doing it properly, it really requires DNA testing. Is that something you can do every time you want to ship a shipment of coral across the state line?
Yeah, it just would not work.
Exactly.
I want to get active about this. I want to make sure that my senator and overall other hobbyists are being heard. What's the best thing that I can do?
First thing is go to my website. Go to petadvocacy.org. We've got a letter written for you. You're free to edit that letter as much as you want, personalize it as much as you want. That actually makes it more likely that the lawmakers read them.
Sure.
The more personalized it is. We will produce a letter for you. It'll get sent to the specific lawmakers we want to have reach it. I promise you it'll take you less than 2 minutes to do the whole thing. The way it's structured right now is it will go to your representatives, your senators.
Yep.
in the very near future, because of some things that happened with the Senate last week, they will be naming what's called a conference committee to try and meet between the Senate and the House and work out the differences between the two different versions of the bill. At that point, we will change our system, and it will specifically target those representatives and those senators that are on the conference committee, so we can make them as aware as possible of the concerns we have. Because this isn't a case where we can tell people, hey, ask your lawmakers to vote against the bill. This is a 2,000-page bill with a half a page of text that we have a problem with. So it is a struggle, and because of that, it's created a lot of confusion. We've seen a lot of postings going up saying that language isn't in the bill anymore. Yes, that language is in the House version of the bill. We have to make sure that lawmakers are clear. We don't dislike the bill, we dislike that half page.
Your best guess, it's gone through the House, the Senate has to reconcile this thing. What do you think is going to happen?
The House sent it to the Senate tore off the cover page that said Competes Act, threw away everything, took the bill they passed last summer, called it the Competes Act, and sent it back to the House. So they are going to meet probably, I would guess they name their conferees within the next 2 or 3 weeks. So we are going to have a limited window to engage on folks. It's going to have to be an all hands on deck kind of thing. Unfortunately, what I think will happen is we have had enough engagement on this that we're going to win. If the level of enthusiasm is maintained, we're going to win this fight. The problem is, because of the power of the people who want this, we're going to see it again. And I'm going to have to convince people that they need to get this fired up again 6 months from now when they stick this same language into the Defense Authorization Act, or next year's Budget Reconciliation Act, or some highway bill, because that's what the powerful people in leadership can do. They can insert this language into a bill it has nothing to do with, but they know is going to pass, and we're going to have to get fired up all over again. So I am not the boy who cried wolf when I come knocking on your door again in 6 months.
Or it sounds like the best thing as a hobby to do is not to get complacent about it at all. Stay aware and keep our eyes on the prize of keeping this kind of stuff that actually doesn't help out of these acts.
Absolutely, and that's the job of a talented bill writer, is to make it sound appealing. You know, our job is to sort through it and find out whether it really is or not.
Well, Bob, stay after it. Thanks for your help. Thanks for
my pleasure.
Making us aware. We'll certainly keep an eye on it and keep an eye on the Pet Advocacy Network as well, so we can know what's going on.